Hello and welcome to Lehigh Carbon Community College Teaching and Learning Center's video workshop on creating an inclusive environment. This workshop will provide you with information on issues related to diversity and inclusion, as well as strategies and tools on how you can create an inclusive environment for your classroom. Let's look at the agenda for today's workshop. First, we'll look at what is an inclusive classroom environment, how to identify what inclusive is, and how you can begin to create your own inclusive environment. 2, we'll look at what influences a classroom environment, what your planning and knowledge contributes to your classroom. Lastly, we'll look at the strategies and tools for creating inclusion. This is your takeaway, the things you can do right now to create a more inclusive classroom. An inclusive classroom has 3 main identifiers. 1, that it's safe. It's safe for students, it's safe for faculty, and it's safe for any guests that enter the classroom. We'll talk about how to handle this in part 3 when we go over how to create classroom norms. 2, it's supported. Critical thinking and open discussion should be welcome for all students and faculty in the classroom. 3, all viewpoints are encouraged. The thing to think about with this is that generalizations and stereotypes should be left at the door before entering your classroom. Again, we'll talk about how to tackle this when we go over creating classroom norms in part 3. So let's delve a little deeper into what that all means. It means that 1, your content is presented in a way that limits students' experiences of marginalization. 2, that the instructor recognizes that individuals' background, values, and perspectives influence how a student constructs their knowledge. And lastly, teaching methods are varied to help all students achieve success. We'll review some different teaching methods when we talk strategies later on in the workshop. Now that we know what an inclusive classroom looks like, we need to discuss what influences what happens in your classroom. Here are 5 main concepts that influence the classroom environment. 1, your course content. What you present in your curriculum will have an effect on the classroom environment. If you're presenting on a controversial topic, that will certainly influence how your students act in class. 2, your prior assumptions and awareness. Being self-aware of your biases is very important. And keep in mind, everyone has biases. It's what you do with them and if you play into them or not. Number 3, how you plan. This includes the types of teaching methods you use in your class. This could include open discussions or just general lecture. Depending on what type of teaching methods you use could affect the type of environment you have within your classroom. And number 4, your knowledge of your students' backgrounds. This could include socioeconomic status, religion, race, previous education. All of these can affect the type of environment that occurs in your classroom. And lastly, number 5, your behaviors. How you respond to your students greatly impacts the environment. Do you call on every student? Do you give praise when a student gives an answer correctly? Do you make a face or grimace if a student doesn't get the right answer? Thinking about these things and being aware of your behaviors can help you create a more inclusive classroom. Our last item on our agenda is strategies and tools for creating inclusion. First, we're going to look at course content. Choosing and using course content. Question 1. Whose voices, perspectives, and scholarship are being represented in the materials used in your course? Think about including multiple perspectives on each topic of the course rather than focusing on a singular perspective. Also, include materials created by people of different backgrounds and perspectives. Question 2. How are experiences of various groups being represented in your class? This may only be applicable with certain disciplines, but consider including materials that address underrepresented groups' experiences. Also, avoid dichotomizing issues of race into black and white. It is essential to recognize that there are other groups for whom racial issues are relevant. Once you have your course content chosen, you can look at how to plan your classes. Things to consider when planning your class. There are a lot of issues within diversity and inclusion that you need to think about when putting your class together. Be comfortable with your lack of knowledge about certain groups and seek different ways to inform yourself. First, let's look at different types of accommodations. One, there's religious holidays. It's a good idea to check your calendar along with your students' calendars to seek ways to allow for students who want to observe certain religious holidays to work within your class constraints. Also, you need to consider students with different types of disabilities. If a student has self-disclosed with the Disability Services Support Center that they have either a learning or physical disability, you are legally required to make accommodations to meet those students' disabilities needs. The easiest thing to do when dealing with a student who has either a physical or learning disability is to contact the Disability Support Services Center, and they will help partner with you to make those accommodations in the best manner possible. Now let's look at instructional strategies. Students bring a wide variety of learning styles into your class. Try relying on a large repertoire of teaching strategies in order to reach all of your students. Here are just some teaching methods you can utilize to help all of your students succeed. Group discussions, lectures, demonstrations, hands-on activities, case studies, guest speakers, and student presentations. Your options are pretty much unlimited. I spoke earlier about setting up classroom norms and expectations to create a safe environment. Let's look at what needs to be included. You can set the norms for your class ahead of time and include them in your syllabus, or to truly get buy-in with your students, spend some time on the first day of class with them and help them create the norms list and have them write them into the syllabus and have them bring the syllabus with them each week and refer to the norms regularly. Concepts to discuss and norms to create for an inclusive classroom can include, but are not limited to, 1. Communication. Raising hands, taking turns during discussion. What about using cell phones? 2. Trust. What can and can't leave the classroom after a discussion? 3. Respect. How does everyone treat each other in the classroom, both students and faculty? 4. Listening. How to actively listen to one another. 5. Safety. What makes a classroom safe for everyone? Try to keep these norms up throughout the semester in some manner, either in the syllabus or somewhere in the classroom environment. The last set of tools and strategies we are going to discuss relate to controversial topics and conflict in the classroom. Let's first look at controversial topics. How can you best manage your class when discussing topics that can incite anxiety? 1. Be proactive. When dealing with a possible controversial topic, anticipate as much as you can the possible reactions by your students and think about how you may react to differing viewpoints. When in doubt, refer back to that norms list we just created. 2. Plan ahead. Think about how to best transition if a discussion gets too heated on a controversial topic. 3. Correct stereotypes. Think about how you can best correct stereotypes and generalizations your students may make when dealing with a controversial topic. 4. Challenge assumptions. Similar to when you're correcting generalizations, students may make assumptions about certain topics based on background knowledge that they bring to the classroom. Be sure to challenge these assumptions when it's necessary to continue correctly on a topic. 5. Model appropriate behavior. Model your behavior so students can see the appropriate way to react to a controversial topic or a heated discussion. Our last area of strategy is when dealing with conflict in the classroom. At times, you will have conflict in your classroom. Respond to that conflict in a way that alerts the students of the teaching moment that happens within that conflict. 1. You want to recognize and address the conflict directly. 2nd, you want to find ways to relate the students' feelings directly to the course content. And lastly, you want to look for ways to find meaning in the heated discussion. You also want to recognize your students' fears about conflict. Discuss their past experiences with conflict and how they've dealt with it.
Also, you can utilize structured experiences to help normalize the idea of conflict.
We hope you have a better understanding of what inclusion is and what creates an inclusive classroom environment. By utilizing some of the strategies that we discussed, you can create a classroom that's safe and welcoming for all of your students.